well, thanks everyone for the transition. This will be worth it. So, okay, so we do have some big news to share about the art project. Folks might remember since taking office, we tried to be as transparent as possible with where we're at, even articulating uncertainties that we didn't know about. And one of the things that came up right away was the financing for this project. And as we discovered earlier in this year, you know, I think despite some of the ways in which it was portrayed, this project was essentially built on spec. We had some positive indications from the federal government with respect to $100 million rounded or so of funding that would fund the project. But in every one of those assurances, there were phrases like, at your own risk. And that means that nothing was ever guaranteed. Then as we fast forwarded in the process a little bit, we of course learned that because of the budget uncertainty, this seems like ages ago when we didn't even have a federal budget passed, you know, there were all sorts of challenges that occurred with respect to whether or not we would ever receive our big chunk of federal funding. Now, along the way, last year, of course, we spent $75 million and more already on this project. So I want to remind folks, we already spent that money. Again, it happened in the past, you know, before we got here, but that money was spent. And when I say spent, literally it was encumbered, and it was also paid out. So essentially what has been happening is we have been letting this sort of ride in terms of a working capital unresolved question until today. And we're able to announce a resolution to that. And before I just come out and say what we found, I want to share what it took to get to this point. You know, when I became mayor, I knew I had a lot of work to do on the art project. I was one of the few candidates who I think raised questions about it in the beginning, but I also came out and said that after you do all the analysis and understand all the pros and cons and all the options, we are left with making the best out of it. And part of that meant dedicating a huge amount of resources from myself and my team to trying to get this funding, the funding that we thought we had all along, but we actually didn't. And so this meant quarterly meetings, sending Lawrence, our COO, out to Austin to meet with the regional FTA folks. It meant me personally traveling to DC and pleading with the FTA and our federal government and our congressional team, senators and our congresswoman, saying that we have to get reimbursed for this. Because if we don't, it means we are going to have to either raise taxes or we're going to have to not do capital projects in the future. So we literally told people exactly like it is, which is that a whole lot was on the line whether or not we're going to get federal funding for this project, both future projects in Albuquerque and even our own tax policy. And I also know that our transit director had weekly calls with the FTA and their team and inspections to deal with really two things: the uncertainty around funding on their end, but also us catching up to all the specification and design issues that we had and articulated and eventually resolved. And so today I am excited to say that we have confirmed that our city will be awarded $75 million in increments according to the FTA budget schedule to fund the already paid for art project. And so this is somewhere between probably a sigh of relief and celebration, but we're going to take it because this removes one of the two biggest hurdles left in this project. And so I'm proud to say that funding is no longer an issue for the art project. Now, it's been a long road for the city on this project, and we're not out of the woods yet. We still have a ways to go, but we can balance our books and we can be straightforward that residents' tax dollars are restored and that our financial house for this project is now in order. So I want to thank, of course, the FTA, the Federal Transit Administration, for these grant dollars and for sticking with us as we worked with them through the project. I want to thank our legislative delegation. They literally, with us weekly and even in person when I was out there, worked with us on a strategy to advocate and to cajole as best we can to get this grant funding. And so our delegation deserves a whole lot of credit. And also, of course, want to appreciate City Council for their flexibility, in a sense, letting us work through this and letting us do our job and actually get this funding. And now being with us here to acknowledge that we've got this part of the project done. So going forward, there is essentially one major hurdle and one minor hurdle. The major hurdle is, of course, the issues with the buses from BYD and the battery life challenges. Now, as we announced in our last press conference, we have a plan on that involves the building of charging stations throughout our city, including out at the new transit center. And if BYD continues to honor their commitments, we believe we are going to be able to have this up and running partially at some time, or initially at some time this winter. And that is good news for Albuquerque. But I want to mention that that is all contingent upon everyone holding up their end of the bargain. What our federal administration and our federal government has done is held up on their end by fully funding this project. And so with a little bit more details on this, we're going to hear from our officials, both our COO and our transit director on this. And I'm going to wrap up at the end. But before we do that, I want to give a chance for some representatives from our federal offices to say a few words, and our city councilors. And so we have Jesse from Congresswoman Michelle Lujan Grisham's office. Come on up.
Thank you. All right, the following statement I'm going to read is from Michelle Lujan Grisham. I am proud to have worked so closely with Mayor Keller and his office to ensure that the art project did not become a costly liability for Albuquerque taxpayers. This federal reimbursement is a testament to the work and strong partnership of all these stakeholders involved, and ensures that the city has the flexibility to invest in other infrastructure programs that improve our transportation system and create jobs. Despite the numerous and serious issues associated with this project, we were able to work together with community members and the congressional delegation to find a solution for people we represent. Moving forward, we must continue to work collaboratively to leverage every opportunity and federal investment to improve the quality of life for Albuquerque residents and promote economic development. I thank Mayor Keller for his commitment securing this critical transit system funding, and his focus on making art a meaningful project that works for the city, especially since his administration inherited numerous complicated challenges. Thank you.
All right, and I think Director of Transit, Bernie Toon, more about him later.
Well, the city has worked tirelessly to make the best out of the project we inherited, and this funding announcement shows that the hours we spent securing the federal funding paid off, literally. Since Mayor Keller took office, city officials have worked diligently to revise the application for the Small Starts program, and kept in close contact with the FTA to update the agency regularly on recent developments. Earlier this year, the city coordinated with New Mexico's federal delegation to ensure that the Smart Starts program funding was included in this year's federal budget. And we want to thank them for working with us to ensure that it was included. Currently, bus drivers are now undergoing a 12 to 14-week training program to learn how to use the ART corridor and the bus platforms. While buses are on the training routes, the city is working on the timing of the lights and driver education, so traffic patterns are as safe and efficient as possible. Our department will also release a public education campaign later on to help Albuquerque drivers and pedestrians stay safe and ensure they are equipped with the information needed to use the new traffic lanes and transportation platforms. And I just want to say a sincere thanks again to our friends at the FTA, everyone who's been involved in our advocacy efforts, and a special shout out, excuse me, to our transportation staff, our planners, our maintenance staff, and everybody at the ATC and Daytona and Yale facilities. I know it's been a longer road for you than it has for me, and thank you.
Well, good afternoon, and I'll take a little bit of the brown stuff off our face here. But I want to be clear that the city will not receive the Small Start grant funding all at one time. The FDA has a schedule for how these grant dollars will be, if you will, released to the city. As you all might remember from our press conferences, $50 million was approved in the 017 budget, FY17 budget, I should say. and another 25 was approved in the FY18 budget. So as a result, we will get them in 2 tranches as we apply and move the paperwork through the FTA. As the mayor said, we still have some challenges with this project. And the project challenges really now focus squarely on the bus manufacturer and the buses that were ordered by the city of Albuquerque when this project first began. We are working diligently with the company to continue to move the project forward. The company has agreed to install charging facilities at 3 locations within the corridor so that we can charge the buses as they operate during the day. Again, as a result of the issue with the batteries do not last as long as we had originally scoped in the RFP. So now we have created a process for us to be able to charge the batteries as the buses operate on a daily basis. So there will be 2 charging stations here at the Unser facility. There will be 2 charging stations at the Uptown Center by Coronado Mall, and then 2 charging stations at Winona and Tramway, which is on the extreme east side of the city. Also, we are working very diligently with the company to ensure that all the warranties and all the other commitments as per the RFP are met. I would also add that all of these charging facilities will be paid for by the company at their expense as part of our negotiation project. Though the project still faces some uphill battles, as we work to get it running again, we are pleased that now the funding has been secured and we can focus now more our efforts on making art work for the citizens of Albuquerque. And so through the course of the next few months, we will continue to work on driver training, as Mr. Toon explained, on driver education for those who are driving the corridor in particular, but also to ensure that, that this project is a success for the city of Albuquerque. And with that, I will turn it over to the mayor.
Okay, and I think actually, on behalf of council, President Ken Sanchez, you wanna?
Yes, please.
Okay, there you go.
Let me first begin by saying that today is an extraordinary day for our community. As I look back on this art project, I want to thank Councilor Benton, Councilor Jones, Councilor Gibson, Councilor Davis, Councilor Harris, and Councilor Winter for your work in supporting the art project. I know that Councilor Pena voted against the project initially, but Councilor Pena brought a lot of good vision to the project as it got underway regarding landscaping, the roadways, and I think the central corridor looks a lot more beautiful today because of her input on this project. But the council endured a lot of criticism with this project over the years, but the resilience and their belief that this money would be there for this project, I think showed that, you know, here we are today standing, and we now have the $75 million needed to pay for the project that has already been paid for. I personally want to thank Mayor Keller and his team, Lawrence Rael and Director Toon. I know one of the first duties as mayor, Mayor Keller went to Washington, D.C. to meet with the congressional delegation, and there was hope and promise, but there was also concern. But he continued to fight for these dollars for this community, along with Lawrence Rael, and we are blessed to have Lawrence as the Chief Operating Officer for the City of Albuquerque. His institutional knowledge in understanding transit, I think, has made a difference, and one of the reasons that we are also standing here today. I also want to thank Mike Reardon, who prior to Lawrence Rael was the project manager for the art project. Mr. Reardon told the council time and time again that there was a letter of no prejudice signed, because at council meetings, we were asking the tough and we were asking the difficult questions. When is the money coming in? We didn't anticipate it was going to take this long. But again, thank you to Mike Reardon. Also, I want to thank the staff that has worked on this project for a long time. They didn't give up hope. We've got some of those individuals here today. They were hopeful, they were optimistic, and today is a great day for the city. The biggest challenge we face now, and as Mayor Keller has stated, we still have a major hurdle that we are facing. We've got to get those buses up and running. And I truly believe with the leadership of Mayor Keller and the leadership of Director Toon and Lawrence Rael that we will see the buses, you know, running very quickly, and the citizens of Albuquerque will have the opportunity to ride the art buses. I would also like to thank our congressional delegation in Washington for the work that they've done. Senator Udall Senator Heinrich, and I had talked to Congresswoman Michelle Lujan Gresham many times on this issue, and she never gave up hope. She had her pulse on this initiative the entire time, so you may want to relay that to the Congresswoman. I also want to thank our lobbyist, John O'Donnell, who works for us in Washington, D.C. He kept us apprised all this time on what was going on, but I truly believe united as a community, there is very, very little that we cannot do, and I think in this project here, we've shown a great deal of unity, but at the same time, we've shown a great deal of cautious. But soon, we will be seeing the art buses running, and I want to thank the taxpayers of our community for their patience. We've taken a lot of criticism, but they have been very patient in hoping that this money was going to come in, and now we are not going to have to use current CIP money for the art project, and we can look at other projects in our districts. Thank you.
Okay, we'll turn that down. If you guys want to chime in, and then we're going to do questions, but. Okay.
I think if you, yeah, go ahead. No, go. We can talk.
Okay, all right.
Because
It's chime time if you want it.
Okay, let's try barbershop quartet. How about that?
you got the right
Let's chime in. Let me get there right. Yeah, just quickly want to say that this is a great day for me. I'm so pleased that we finally got this project complete. Back in the 1990s, when I had no idea that I would ever be on the city council, I do remember seeing in the news the city declaring Central Avenue the choice for a major transit corridor that would have high-capacity transit. A lot of ideas came and went since the 1990s, but that was something that was established as part of our federal priorities way back then. I was a big supporter of the modern streetcar under Mayor Chavez. That also took a lot of all sorts of grief to the point where I think there was an acknowledgement we weren't going to have the support of the council for what needed to happen at that time, and that project was dropped. This project, under the previous administration, the previous mayor came to myself, to every councilor along the route, I think it was, if I remember correctly, Councilor Garduno, representing District 6, Councilor Harris, et cetera, with this concept of BRT. By the way, when the streetcar was defeated, a lot of the argument was we can do so much more per mile with BRT. And that was an acknowledged fact that was a good argument against the rail project. So anyway, here we are today. I really appreciate, given the circumstances and the timing of what went on, and a change in the federal administration, the professionalism with which Mayor Keller's team took this on, something that they did not ask for, although he did run for office knowing it was being constructed. But we'll let that one slide. But anyhow, I mean, the professionalism with which the team and the optimism of, hey, here it is, we got to make lemonade, if I remember the term correctly. And so I appreciate that. But yeah, our delegation came through back before the change of administration. I spoke to Senator Heinrich and I said, would it be at all any small percentage of a chance that this would not be funded once that letter had been written? And he said, absolutely not. But that was a while back, right? And so it took a lot. I do appreciate the help of our lobbyist, Mr. O'Donnell, but particularly that everyone's sticking with this. And we're Albuquerque. We're going to make it work, and it's going to be great. Driving up Central, I agree, Councilor. We were on the opposite side of the vote, but that is so beautiful. And I know that's because she said no. She's not going to stand for anything less than a beautiful quarter, and it is. It's really nice. So thanks, everybody, and congratulations.
And to add in, I should say, I think we were joking running over here in the dirt that I think Mother Nature's sending us a message really quickly to tell Lawrence not to get too cocky. We're not quite done yet. But what a difference a year makes. It really has been a huge difference for the city. A huge credit to the mayor and Lawrence and Bernie in particular because having them come in changed the dynamic of the way the city was looking at this project from the administration side and collectively. Instead of having a process through which we were hiding problems and hoping to solve them, they were transparent about the challenges we were facing, and that allowed us all to work together in a united way to go after and provide the assurance to the folks in DC that we had this covered and that we knew what we were doing, and that the investments we were making in Central Avenue were the right ones for the next 20 years to help it grow. I think it's a direct result of that changed attitude, their ability to sit down, look at the problem, evaluate it, and really find real solutions that gave our city hope and it gave us promise to know that we had the right answers to really challenging problems. The great thing for us is for folks on Central Avenue, the orange barrels are gone, the parking spaces are open, and the buses are running with training drivers every day now. And for those of us who spend a lot of time on Central with for breakfast or lunch or shopping, it's great to hear the shop owners now look outside and see the future of this. And I can tell you they're going to be incredibly excited to know that we're not raising their taxes or that we're not dipping into future funds, that we're ready to finish this project and bring people back to Central. And that makes a huge difference. And so, again, what a difference a year makes from where we were with that uncertainty to where we are today. And it tells everybody we're doing this and finishing it. And I want to say thank you to everybody from our delegation to the new administration and our partners on the city council on all sides of this for working together to do it. And it's a good partnership, and it's a good lesson for us to start again on this project and to move forward as a city on how we can tackle really big problems. And so I appreciate the new administration for working with us on that.
All right.
Real quick. So as you already heard, Ken just announced it, that I was the one. So I was asking them, I wonder if I should stand off to the side instead of being directly in the middle. I just want to kind of reiterate what folks said. You know, I really appreciate the administration coming in and taking the bull by the horns and really tackling this and getting us to where we are today. It's really important. You know, the project is something that I haven't been a fan of. I'm not necessarily a fan of. And I just think that, you know, making lemonade out of lemons is really important at this point. We have several hurdles that we still have to overcome, but I think with us, you know, with the relief of receiving these dollars helps us to do that and to negotiate some of the other issues that we have along the corridor. And I'm hoping that it's everything that everyone hopes it is. And I just really want to give a big shout out to City Council, because they're the ones that, you know, outside of me, I could go to any restaurant on Central and eat, and they had a hard time doing that. But I just really want to say that they took a lot of the brunt of this, you know, and sometimes as counselors, you know, we really have to make some of those tough decisions because we have to carry out a vision for the city of Albuquerque. So I really want to applaud you guys. So, thank you.
Well, I'm the newest counselor, and the mayor and I were elected at the same time. And I know that he and I both stayed up nights worrying about the funding for this project. At least I did, and I'm sure that he did. Probably he didn't get any sleep at all. I'm really excited to be here today because I see this not only as a leg for the city, for art, but I see it as an entire circulatory system for the entire transit system. And I see it as a way to improve the hubs of our transit corridors for the future. I think that this is definitely a step in the right direction for economic development. One of the main things that I did when I took office was I traveled to Washington, D.C. With Councilor Harris, Councilor Gibson, and Councilor Benton, and we met with FTA. So, you know, this is really a process, and it's been a growing process for the entire city, but I think now we come together, as Mayor Keller has indicated, as one Albuquerque, and we move forward into the future. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, counselors. So I'm going to end with just a couple of points. Number one, there are two people who, at least from an administration perspective, you know, this would not have happened without all of their work. And one, of course, is our COO, Lawrence Rael. He does trains and buses. But the other one I really just want to shine a light on. You know, you never know when you become mayor and you let go of other folks at the transit department and you have to find new folks. And this guy named Toon shows up who, you know, is the chief of staff for like 5 U.S. senators and happened to also have very good connections in D.C. From his work. And that confluence of Toon showing up in Albuquerque, ready to actually take on funding the art project, is a minor miracle. It has taken a Herculean effort on his part, and we are so lucky as a city to have him now running our transit department in this particular specific time of need that matches his exact skill set. So I want to give Lawrence and Bernie a round of applause on behalf of Albuquerque. Okay, so we're going to take questions, and let me close with this. As Councilor BORREGO mentioned, this is a great example of us as one Albuquerque. I talk about how we need to come together to solve our city's challenges regardless of whether we're council, whether we're county commission, whether we're a federal delegation, whether we're across departments or whatever party we're in. You can see that we're here today because this is good news for Albuquerque. Even if you were on one side of the project or the other in the past, we needed this and we got it, and we're on to the next challenge with respect to the buses. And someday, hopefully this winter, I hope to see those buses running. So with that, thank you very much, and we'll do some questions as a group, and then we'll cut it, and of course, whoever wants to talk after. There's